Hello, welcome back to the workshops on the Bach Cello Suite. I'm Jean-Guihen Queyras, this is IDAGIO Live, and today is our 35th episode, and we will talk about the Gavotte from the Sixth Suite. And it is such a privilege, a joy, and an excitement to welcome in this episode my friend and the extraordinary musician, pianist Piotr Anderszewski. He will be with us in about 15 minutes and talk to us about his love of Bach. Before we go on to the movement of the day, I know it happens to me quite often, but I have to do a catch-up of the preceding episode on the sarabande because I received a question by Benjamin, but this question reached me too late after the episode was made. And Benjamin was asking, hello Jean-Guihen, I'm asking myself about sarabande from the Sixth Suite, how to make the chords, the four notes chords. May I leave one or the other note out? Also, I am in general looking for a way to get a lighter type of playing in this movement. So this question by Benjamin is, he's putting the finger, it's a very good question, thank you Benjamin. It's putting the finger on an issue that we all have with the sarabande, which is a large issue about how to make four note chords sound harmonious but not heavy. That's one thing. And also there is the extra challenge of the fact that we are playing on four strings instead of five, and some of the chords are almost impossible. So I would say when you make your choices about to leave a note or not, you will have to, I guess, again think about your priorities. What do you want to achieve when you play these chords? And the first thing to remember is the flow of the music, the flow of the bass line, and you want this flow not to be damaged or interrupted because of the technical realization of a chord. So if this means sometimes leaving a little note out, I think it is okay, as long as the priorities are right. I will give two examples of quite extreme chords that we have in this sarabande, and I will tell you what my solution is, and then you can judge for yourself whether it's a good thing. So right in the second bar of the sarabande, we have this sixth chord with the octave G, because originally we have the E string. So to be honest, I sometimes just touch the harmonic on the way up, and sometimes I decide to go, I think that's what Yo-Yo Ma does, he just leaves the octave G and he does. So both have their advantages. I like to have this arpeggiated fullness of the chord. Also, I like it because that way we have this octave G resolving to the F sharp in the next chord. But I also see the point that if you don't play the octave, if you just play this, it's another kind of compromise, and with this compromise, your low note, it gives more ground to the chord because the lower note will ring longer. The other example I want to give, the two other examples is these bars here, which is the most extreme chord we have in this sarabande. So I decided, for example, this one. Some of my colleagues play really two notes and two notes. For me, the problem with this is that for the listener, if you hear two sets of two notes. It's really like you have two impulses in the chord. And again, this is done at the cost of the pulse, because then instead of having one beat, of the sarabande, 1, 2, you will you have suddenly two pulses, and that I find very problematic. This is also what led me to go for a crazy fingering in the next bar. Most of my colleagues do play 1, 2, 3, 4 with making extension, which is very difficult. But of course, it's sort of in one position. And I decided to go for the arpeggiated chord and make a shift like that, like this, because I find that way I can have in a way more of a flow within the chord. So I'm just showing some of the choices I made. I decided, because of this question by Benjamin, and questions that I received from other people, I will make in the future at some point a sort of special episode on all the technical tricks we have to take care of in this sarabande, but that will be for another time. For now, let's go to our gavotte. So, as you can hear, a very dancing movement and with a very continuous bass line. And now, a very special moment after this very sort of, really like it's going for a walk almost. It's a dance that is a very, very simple one. Before, sorry, I first I come back. Let's see. As you can see, this two-bar pattern we have is, as always, divided in two. Like we have our 2 feet because it's a dance. So we have the sort of very vertical aspect of the two bars, which are with these chords, and then the more melodic other aspect of these two bars, and then again the chords, and then again just melody, and then again the vertical aspect. So this gives, please bear with me if I again make a fool of myself by dancing a little bit, because remember, this is the most important, that we feel how the music grooves. So we have, if we have tum 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 ta da 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 dum ta da da dum, the answer of it will be in a different character than the beginning of the phrase, and that's a very important aspect. So, and after having us getting used to this bass that just goes, something very special happens here. And as we have seen very often in this suite, what is very special is the absence of something, and the fact that that's the only time in the whole first part where we don't have on the strongest beat a bass note. We don't have a chord, and so it is a suggested one. So, and why does Bach do that? Why is suddenly a note missing there? By the way, dear French cellists out there, pay attention to this, because many of us make the mistake, don't pay attention to it, and still play an E there. And this is a big mistake, because the reason Bach doesn't put a bass note there, well, it has 2 reasons. Is that, first of all, the line of the bass changes. So until from the beginning to then we expect, and instead of this, the virtual note there is actually, we are staying on G. And as we have seen, this is a trick that he has used in all 6 suites, that very often the most important notes he will not give us. So he will, and that gives a very sort of expecting quality to the music. So it's very important. First of all, please do not play, certainly not an E there. And in the best case, don't play anything. So in the second part, as always, Bach will make a bit longer phrases, which is, after doing something that seems to be the same as before, he's going to go for a long streak of melodic eighth notes, and then again a longer phrase of 4 bars, this time by having not only melodic eighth notes, but the bass is not moving in half bars but whole bars. And then, on the contrary, at the end of this sequence, a quick bass, a walking bass. And now, again, our rhythm 2 and 1, but this time with a bass. And then again a longer line. Back. And before concluding, Bach takes our theme again, but gives it a bit more dynamic by changing the bass to B. And then again we stay on one note for longer, and then again acceleration of the bass for the cadenza. Now the Gavotte 2 is, as always, remember these double, these movements which have a double, like the gavotte, the bourrées, the menuet, they live on the dialogue between the 2 parts. And we saw that in the first 3 suites, Bach used, for example, the major-minor contrast. From the 4th suite, he doesn't anymore. Now, here, it's the 2 gavottes are, in appearance, they seem to be actually quite similar. They are both very dancing. We have and this one. But it's still, as you can feel, I'm sure, intuitively, it's a different kind of dancing. It's a different kind of grooving, because in the first gavotte, we had this very vertical start of the phrase with a repeated note and the very vertical chords, and then the more something more linear. Well, here it's in a way the contrary, that we have an ornamented 2 first beats, and then a sort of very light downbeat. Certainly not a chord, and then a walking bass, and then in the second part of this, it's so wonderful because it's very simple music in a way. It's like a village dance, and Bach seems to rejoice at that. So he starts the second part with a very active bass that will be sort of, what I call walking bass. So, as as you can hear, the bass here is not anymore in half bass, it's a... And then the D pedal. And now again, my little playing trick for our cellist friends out there. Differentiate your two voices. Don't try to play this as double stops. So if you play the same length exactly on the lower and on the higher voice, you won't enough differentiate the voices, and this will lack clarity. So always stay longer on the A string, and so that your D string, your lower voice, is very light. Basically, the argument for this, and which I always remind my students, is if you were just playing the bass for a friend of you who is playing the melody, so your friend would be playing, you wouldn't play your bass, right? You would naturally play like. So that means always do a little bit arpeggiando and then stay. So this is the trick for this passage. With an extra trick for the very first note, here we have the problem that the melody goes to the D string. If you stay too long on your F sharp, what people will hear will be, and you don't want that. You definitely don't want that. So on this very first beat of the second half of this Gavotte 2, please don't play the G before you are only playing the A before. So let me show it in slow motion. Make sure you are only left on the A string. And same thing here. Make sure that your A really stays by itself. And not, because here you can hear da-da-da, which is not our melody. Great, we come back to our... and now it's really the wonderful enjoyment of something very, let's say it, primitive in the most beautiful sense of the word, because it's a bordone, really like a bagpipe motif, or a viella roux, you know, on the village, this old instrument that was used in the village for dancing parties. That means not only my bass stays the same all the time, it's not moving, so it sort of has something very insistent, but it's also repeated on each beat, you know, to make sure. Now, I am aware this is a bit far stretched and very much my interpretation, but just because I enjoy it. But I hear in this Bordone passage, I hear a very liberated and joyful variation on our sarabande, which we just played before. So I think this is again sort of celebrating this very generous expression that we had in the sarabande in a much more dancing way and totally uninhibited. Now is the moment where we welcome our guest. Dear Piotr, are you there? Can you hear me? And can you...
1 second.
Yes, I hear you. I don't see you
Start
yet.
video.
I don't see you yet.
Start
Yes.
video.
Okay, let me see. Maybe I have to change my
Ask
window.
to start video. Start my video. There we are.
Oh, Piotr, yes, I see you. Fantastic.
To be clear.
I hear you very well. Wonderful. Dear Piotr, thank you so much for being with us today. It's, well, now we have met a few times, and you know in private how much of a fan I am of everything you do, and since many years. And under many other repertoires, I find that your Bach is absolutely stunning. And I would like to tell our viewers that, first of all, you released an album on the Wohltemperiertes Klavier not long ago, I think in February, if I'm not mistaken.
January, and yeah.
Yes, which is so wonderful. Please go out there and listen to it. And you have a chance also to watch Piotr play this program in a concert that you gave, dear Piotr, recently at the Elbphilharmonie in Hamburg, and the link is still active. So if you go on the website of the Elbphilharmonie, you can find this streaming concert that Piotr gave there very recently, and this is just a very precious moment of music. So please,
thank you, Jean-Guihen. Really.
yes, no, of course. So, dear Piotr, when I contacted you already quite a while ago, and I was insisting because I couldn't imagine going through this Bach series without having you as a guest, you said, I would love to be there for the Gavottes from the Sixth Suite. Now, tell us why.
Well, I was hesitating between I think the Allemande and the Gavotte and maybe the Sarabande. But yes, the Sixth Suite generally, I possibly that's the one I prefer from all the six. You know, I can't tell you exactly why, but you know, it does touch a string in me, which is related to English suites for keyboard. Mm-hmm. Actually, all those pieces were written, I believe, more or less in the same period, I think. Mm-hmm. In the 20s, no, 1720s. But this suite, this Sixth Suite, really, I associated a lot to English suites, which are pieces very close to my heart. And this Gavotte, well, those Gavottes, you know, it's just about this combination of what is so obviously perfect and beautiful, and yet so full of surprises all the time. And we just cannot believe that we are still surprised by the harmony, by you know, how Bach achieves this obviousness and this simplicity. And yes, I mean, that's very generally speaking. Yes,
I think I see what you mean. There is something about, in a way, I'm going to say something which is, I don't know. It's just, I'm just thinking aloud. Okay, maybe it's stupid, but he's almost Mozartian before the time in these pieces, in the way, I mean, that he achieves music that seems to be just like the most simple village dance, but it's so perfect and
so sophisticated. And this village dance, the second Gavotte, really, when you try to analyze this, you know, how he achieves this, it's, of course, it's very complicated down.
Yeah.
But yes, this peasant, as you just said, I listened to the primitive quality, is just so, it takes you in the guts. I mean, at least me, you know, and it actually reminds me a little bit of the musette of the third English suite of the Gavotte. Mm-hmm. It's a sort of musette, the second Gavotte, no?
Yes, absolutely.
A village peasant dance, yes, with an obstinate bass, where we actually don't move harmonically. I mean, tiny bit in one space, but actually we stay in the tonic. We obsessively stay in the tonic. And it's also a second gavotte en rondeau, I think, yes? So he keeps coming back to the first element of the second gavotte. It's second gavotte en rondeau. It's quite original, I think. And, you know, I just wonder for cellists the challenges it must. I mean, you've been just explaining beautifully and talking about this, but you know, I think this suite was designed for 5-string cello. Yes.
Yes. I feel ashamed.
How did they call this instrument? Viola, something.
Well, the
violoncello
piccolo. Yes.
There was another name, viola something. Very outdated.
Viola da spalla. The one that you could have on the shoulder. That's the one that. So Sergei Malov, who is really one of the masters, the great master of this instrument these days, who revived this instrument. Really, he was our guest in the prelude of this suite, because so it was very interesting for the people to see for which instrument this was actually probably composed.
Yes, but Jean-Guihen, I would have a question actually to you. You play it on 4-string cello, yes?
I know. I'm
really... No. And what is the, without entering too many technical details, obviously it's possibly easier technically. I mean, why would you, does the music, according to you, does the music lose something by playing it on a 4-string cello? I mean, obviously, I think I know your answer. If it would, you wouldn't play it.
Yeah.
No. But there is always, you know, because on keyboard music on Bach, we are so much confronted with, you know, what instrument was it written for? For example, Wohltemperiertes Klavier, especially, it could be for any keyboard instrument. I would go further. It sometimes could be for chorus. It sometimes could be for maybe a string ensemble. So this question of Bach and the instrument for which he wrote, I am very curious in this instance, these 5 strings, what does it mean to you? I mean, as a
Piotr, I'm not surprised that you put the finger where it hurts, but also where it's interesting, which very often goes together, doesn't it? So yes, look, of course, needless to say, we have talked about this in the previous episodes, because and when I started talking about this suite, when we talked about the prelude, but still, I'm happy to answer your question. And we had also once. Nicolas Altstedt came as a guest, and he had this point of view, and which I found very nice and representing also of his generation, because he's obviously much younger than me, and where he said he had decided never to play the 6th suite until he would find the right instrument, the right 5-string instrument. Because, okay, so to answer your question quickly, without getting our viewers bored, one of the reasons to play it on 4-string is that the 5-string instrument is basically a bit of an experimental instrument. It's when you add this 5th string, you get this very nice light color on the top, but then you lose on the bass, and then but you definitely get something that you will never get here, which is a lot of light. This very going towards the viola da gamba in terms of color. What you have here with the 4-string instrument is the sort of grandeur of a cellist going to these high registers, and it has also something. So there is something, and on top of that, of course, and I'm ashamed to talk about these practicalities, but when you are on tour, playing the 6 suites, or you are playing a concerto the day before, to always have 2 cellos, it's already a pain in the neck to travel with a cello. People should know that. And to travel with 2 cellos would be really very, very difficult. So all of these reasons, I think there is a way to still be fair to this music by playing it on 4 strings. But absolutely, I think the right thing is five strings.
You know, because what you've said, the top, you talk about top registers, and obviously it demands a certain effort, no? And it's.
Yes.
I believe that sometimes transcending the instrument brings us closer to the music, brings us actually closer to the difficulty, forces our imagination and stimulates our imagination. And the difficulty, the technical difficulty, the sound difficulty, we need to find other ways. And what you just said, you know, because I really do believe very strongly in Bach's case that the instrument, it's incredibly important to know the instruments of the period, but I do believe that this music has such incredible, you know, transcendental qualities, and it transcends the instrument. Totally transcends the instrument, and a good interpreter needs to transcend the instrument, whether it's a harpsichord or a cello, 4-string cello, 5-string cello. But
sorry, I don't want to interrupt Piotr, but I wanted to, because I think in the end, it comes to what you mentioned before, when you were mentioning that, you know, that some places sound like it could be a quartet, some places sound like it could be another instrument, and it's the same in the Vol Temperatures Clavier, as you said, you know, that you get the feeling. And I think this is the key, and this is something I am directly telling to our cellist viewers out there, that I think more important than whether you play on gut strings or whether you play on 5 or 4 strings or whether is the imagination and the capacity to think orchestral, to think chamber music, to think that you are more than a cello, that you
suggest that you are more the pure sound that you produce, but behind the sound that you produce, you suggest something else. You have your 4 strings, but you suggest I think that's our power as interpreters is precisely there, and there's very few composers that allow this to do this more in a more free, in a more limitless way than Bach. You know? But coming back to this gavotte, I don't know, I mean, it's just the ambiguity also of this music. You know, I was thinking the second gavotte. It's also technical that the accent is not on the downbeat in a way.
No, that's true.
And yet the downbeat should be a downbeat. And how do we find maybe I should go to the piano, I don't know.
Oh yes, please, please, Piotr.
Because I've been looking at this music and thinking how to resolve this dilemma. But of course, can you see me?
Oh yes, we see you and we hear you. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Don't change anything.
Look at this. Because of course you have the bass. So still. Obstination with the D. What? I don't know. How do you manage these downbeats, right? I wonder.
I know. Piotr, may I interrupt just for 1 second? Is it a laptop that you're using or a phone or
Laptop.
it's a laptop. Then it's too complicated. Okay, because no, there was just something with the sound. We could hear you. It's wonderful. We could hear your demonstration, but the quality of the sound was not ideal because we forgot to change to original sound.
But how do you manage? Ya-da-dum, pom. So it's not the ta-da-dum, pom, 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 pa, tida, ya-da-dum, pom, 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 pom. So I find this very challenging.
Yeah.
Also, it's the second gavotte is I find generally in music, but with Bach it's very evident. The movement, where does the movement go? Where does it stop? How do we pronounce a phrase and finish it and start the next phrase without chopping the music, of course, yeah?
Right.
I believe in this second gavotte. Yadadum, pom 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 pom, yadadadadadum, pom 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 pom. It's a new idea. So these ideas are separate entities, and yet we don't want to chop them apart. I don't know. It's just one of the challenges I find.
Yes. I'm so happy you mentioned that because in the Gavottes of the Fifth Suite, I talked about it, and also in the bourrées of Third and Fourth Suite, which is of course a different dance, but also a dance that goes in 2 bars and with an upbeat. So there is some kind of cousin relationship. And I find interesting, I'll try to take my cello while having my headphones. That's a bit of a challenge, but exactly what you said. I enjoy the ambiguity, and I would encourage our cellist viewers out there to also not be afraid about this ambiguity, that we never know if it's N1 and 2 or N1 and 2. Do we go to the second bar or do we go to the first bar and then relax? And in a way, there is no real answer to that. For example, now I'm going back to the Gavotte 1, yeah? So, does it need to be? Or is it? And I think we don't want it to be very obviously one or the other. And yet you have to feel in you that basically that one of the downbeats is going to be your left foot and one of the downbeats is going to be your right foot. That there is a balancing, that they dialogue with each other, this first and second bar.
Of course, so there is a sense of absolute clarity without a sense of obviousness. Yes, it's this balancing act, yeah, and but also in terms of the character of the first gavotte, you know, I was yesterday I was looking at the music, and so many characters that you can give to this music, you know.
Yeah.
You can give the very rustic yum pum pum da da da. Maybe in the piano it would be easier if you can hear me. I don't know.
Yeah. The sound is a bit distorted, but we absolutely get what you want to show us.
Or do you want to be more gracious? So many ways, yes.
Piotr,
do you or do you want to? Or maybe a bit faster. I mean, maybe not on the cello, but so many ways to get, you know, between the rustic and the elegant and the galant and the refined, and ideally it needs to have all of them, no?
Yes. Oh, that was so wonderful. You know, Piotr, what I enjoyed so much now was the way you gave, so to say, this two-bar structure with just a little bit of timing. And particularly at the end of the first part. Ah, yes. And that's timing is so important. Oh my God.
You know,
Yes.
another timing. Talking of timing, I was struck by this passage, which is where we stopped. You know. I mean, why does he write this? Should be like this. Suddenly the whole thing becomes so lyrical.
Ah, yes.
Because we get quite down. Enfin. Why those things are so moving and so lyrical? No, c'est juste des croches.
Wonderful.
So those changes make the richness of this music. Those surprises. Yum pum yum da da. He could perfectly continue the same yum pum ta 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 ti da 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 da. But it does announce the B minor. No?
That's
it does announce the darkness. It does announce something. It's not just galant and rustic. There is pain behind. Yes, there is something. This is where this music is so unbelievably rich and powerful in this combination of emotions. Yes, and so even within a very simple rustic dance, we have this element of tenderness, pain, maybe, you know, anguish. I don't want to say, maybe that's going too far, but darkness too. Yeah.
Oh, that was so wonderful. Despite the sound distortions, we got Piotr Anderszewski's Gavotte from the Sixth Suite, ladies and gentlemen. This is such a privilege, and this is why I cherish this series so much myself. Piotr, we have to stop, unfortunately. Thank you so much. That was wonderful, really.
Big improvisation, Jean-Guihen, all of these conversations, but
yes,
I sometimes wish we'd be more structured, but maybe that's the charm of it. Yeah.
For, you know, we do with the means of the moment. So I wish you all the best, dear Piotr. Be healthy, be well, and I look forward to seeing you in live very soon again.
Great pleasure.
Dear friends out there, we will see each other for our last episode of this long journey. Probably next week, if not the week after, but with me now, you have been used to this unexpectedness of my scheduling. But for sure, we will see each other very soon for this last episode. All the best to you. Stay healthy.